Hello everyone, welcome to the video. Hope you're all doing great out there. Well, today I thought I'd switch things up a bit and talk about the car that's featured in many of my videos. That's right, the 1998 Toyota Avensis. Well, this is also based on some viewer comments. Some people don't know what the car is. It's a European vehicle. It's now found on the American market. This is a 1998 model year, equipped with a 5-speed manual transmission. It has been in my family since the year 2009. Before this vehicle, I used the 2003 Volvo S40. You might have also seen that on my channel. I've been driving the Avensis intensively for the past 2 years. I must confess that it's been kind of fun, especially with the 5-speed manual transmission. Initially, I felt I wasn't going to like it at all, but I guess rolling your gears actually makes a whole lot of difference. So like I said earlier on, this is a 1998 model. That means it's going to be 25 years old. That's if it's not already 25. For the 98 model year, it came with a choice of 5 engines, 3 petrol and 2 diesel versions. The petrol versions range from 1.6 liters to 1.8, then 2.0. This is a 1.8 liter petrol engine version. The diesels were 2-liter units. So I'll consider this a compact car. It's quite roomy on the interior, but definitely not a large vehicle. The 98 model year came in 3 body styles: a sedan, hatchback, and a wagon. This is obviously the hatchback version. And I must confess that being a hatchback has a lot of advantages in that you can lug around very bulky items quite easily. Quite practical, I must say. Although the rear hatch on this has been rattling a lot, probably due to its age. I'll consider this a safely fast vehicle. You're not likely going to get into trouble with it, except you actually want to get into trouble. It's fast, but you need to be quite patient with it. I guess that's a good thing for some, so I don't get into trouble. So I'll pop the hood and talk more about that. So here we are under the hood of the Avensis. It has a 7 AFE engine. This engine can also be found in some Toyota Corollas of around the same model years as this Avensis. This particular Avensis model ran from 1997 up to 2003. In 2001, there was a mid-cycle refresh with upgraded headlights, engines, and rear tail lights, and some other minor improvements. So this particular engine, the 7 AFE engine, is a 1.8 liter, like I earlier mentioned. It produces 110 horsepower and 114 pound-feet of torque. It doesn't have variable valve timing at all, so that makes it quite slow in accelerating. So if you want to get some decent power out of it, you need to ensure that you keep the revs quite high. It's a dual overhead cam engine. The two cams, that is the intake and exhaust, are driven by a timing belt connected to the exhaust cam. Because it's a relatively small engine, it's has been quite reliable, and I think I've had the timing belt replaced only twice, and that should have been just once. The first belt I put on there was substandard, so it broke. By the way, this is a non-interference engine. So actually when the belt broke, there was no damage to the engine at all. The only inconvenience was having to do a timing belt job by the roadside, which I did within about 2 hours. It has a distributorless ignition system. We have 2 coils. Each of the coils serves 2 of the cylinders. So that's been quite reliable. By the way, these are the original coils that came with the vehicle. And also this is the original engine on there. Never had the engine replaced and still runs very good. Doesn't burn oil or smoke. Still has lots of power. The power steering pump is still the original pump. The alternator is still original. The air conditioning compressor is also original. Never had any problems with them, and they still seem to work very fine. I had the water pump replaced a couple of years ago with a brand new unit. I also got the radiator repaired because it developed a leak. So moving ahead, that's the map sensor. It doesn't have a mass airflow sensor. It's also drive by cable. That's the throttle body right there. The starter, still original. You can see my video on that, what went wrong with it recently. So I can say it's still original. The fuel pump, still original. Had the radiator replaced once. Had this upper tank replaced because split open. What else? The whole muffler, the exhaust system, still original, still in very good condition. What else? So, couple of things. It has had one clutch job. By the way, the car was bought at around 124,000 kilometers. The equivalent in miles is showing on screen right now. So I did a clutch job, and then yes, so only one clutch job since ownership. Right now the car has almost 298,000 kilometers. Then I got the crank seal, the one down there, replaced. And then also the harmonic balancer disintegrated a few years ago, so I got that replaced too. Then what else? The rear main seal, I did that I think a year or two ago. I think that was last year. Yes. Pictures showing on screen right now. Obviously, I had to take out the transmission. I had an engine hoist, so that made it a lot easier. And then the clutch had to come out. And then using a screwdriver, a method I saw on here on YouTube, I was able to get the old seal out without any damage. Then with some lubrication, I was able to insert a new seal, and then using a hammer and a soft piece of wood, I was able to tap in the new seal in place successfully. I also inspected the clutch items to check if everything was good, especially the trowel bearing, and it seemed fine. I also lubricated the input shaft so that the trowel bearing could move very easily. So that went really smooth. I forget. For a couple of years, I think for about 2 years, started hearing some noise on the transmission. Felt like a howling noise while going down the highway. So I contemplated having the transmission replaced, but unfortunately I couldn't get a used one. And then I thought to myself that since all the gears were shifting fine, why not repair it? So fortunately I saw a video by Peter Finn on YouTube, or a set of videos where he explained the whole process of getting the bearings and the manual transmission replaced. So I took on the job. Now the job wasn't particularly difficult, though it was scary, and then everything went back together. Eventually, before I got the job done, the car broke down. Literally, it got stuck in a gear. The car couldn't move. I couldn't change gears at all, so I had to drive about 10 kilometers in first gear. Trust me, it wasn't fun. So if you're having that noise, don't let it linger on for too long. Take out the transmission. It's not as difficult as it seems. Take it out, dismantle it, get it fixed. You'll find the broken bearings or faulty bearings in there. Replace them. Not so expensive. I think I got my replacement bearing for about $35, and then everything ran very smooth again. Using my engine hoist, I was able to get the transmission out of the vehicle, and then I literally carried the transmission into my apartment because I had to be fully focused. Took it apart within a few hours, and then obviously saw the broken bearing. As you can see here, it was literally disintegrated. I could see wear marks under the gear that was affected and how it was being jammed against one of the bolts. I had to do a lot of cleaning, and then eventually I had to take out the race of the bad bearing. So here's showing a picture of the bad bearing and the replacement one. So I got everything all set up, tapped the new bearing on using a socket and a hammer. And then after cleaning everything up properly and lubricating the necessary parts with some gear oil, I also ensured that I cleaned the magnet inside the transmission. Yes, there's a small magnet in there to catch on any metallic particles that could be moving around. And then I put everything back together. It was quite cool to see all the synchros and the gears. So aside that, the Avensis has been very reliable, extremely good car. So let's walk around and I'll tell you more. So part of the peculiarities of this car, if you look at it closely, especially going from the side, you notice that the vehicle is quite high off the ground. Yes, I realized that vehicles made in the 90s and early 2000s, some of them were particularly designed with very high ground clearance. So this is one of those with very high ground clearance. It can be quite advantageous, but if you're a spirited driver, it may not be a good option for you at all, because at highway speeds you could feel the high ground clearance because the handling isn't very good with this. But obviously if you're driving through rough roads, it's quite good. So moving on ahead, the car has independent suspension at the back. It's quite good and it gives it a relatively smooth ride. It's the kind of suspension found on quite a number of Toyota models. So let me bend right here and show you the whole setup. So we can see a trailing arm from which goes longitudinally, and then we have two side arms. Has a full strut at the back, has a sway bar. So recently I had to do some work on this. Obviously we can see the relatively new control arm right there. Had to get that replaced because it went bad as a result of a bad trailing arm bushing. So what I will say about that is, if you're having a knocking noise from the rear end and you have this kind of suspension setup, especially a knocking noise after going over a sharp portion on the road, obviously the noise will be intermittent. That should tell you to probably check your rear trailing arms. Also at highway speeds, I could feel the rear of the vehicle wandering a bit. So that will definitely be a telltale sign that your trailing arm bushing could have gone bad. So looking at the interior of the car, has power windows all around. The driver window is one touch, auto down and up. Everything held up really good for a 25-year-old vehicle. Has fog lamps. Virtually everything in here works. The seats are not ripped up at all. I can say materials back then were definitely quite good. The headliner is in extremely good condition. Whatever material that was used has held up to the test of time. Everything looks extremely good, better than some newer cars. So as you can see, although the dashboard has some cracks on the edges, but it's not bad at all. As you can see, I got the steering wheel wrapped. I bought some kit off Amazon and got it wrapped myself. I think it looks pretty good because the leathers on the leather wrap steering started coming apart and it looked unsightly. So I got this done. Now say I like it. So center console here, the air conditioning system. This is the original stereo system on the car. Let me get the cassette out. Yes, it still has a cassette in here. Interestingly enough, it works. Oh, it's getting stuck. I almost forgot to mention that sometime last year in 2021, I had to get the power steering rack replaced. I noticed that while driving straight, there was a dead spot where the steering wheel was doing nothing. Like the steering rack was actually one at the dead on center point. So I got the issue verified, and after troubleshooting, I realized that the steering rack was actually one on the center point. So it was quite involving because I had to obviously take out the front subframe to get the job done. Fortunately, the engine and transmission are mounted on the front frame rails, and I could take out the subframe without having to support the engine and transmission from the top. The job went on smoothly, though I would say it was quite sensitive because if you mistakenly turned the steering wheel while the steering rack was out, you stood the risk of breaking the steering airbag clock spring and setting a code. So, how's it like driving the Avensis? I can say because it's a manual transmission vehicle, it's quite fun and it really stimulates me because I find myself looking down at the tachometer a lot to know exactly when to change and what gear to get it in. And I can do all these adjustments based on the kind of driving I want to get done, whether I want to drive in a spirited fashion, I want to take things very easy. Although at times when driving through traffic, it can be quite painful. Besides that, I would say it's a pretty good card. And like I earlier mentioned, going around corners can be a little bit sketchy, but it's a safely fast vehicle, which is not likely going to win you any races. Obviously, you shouldn't be racing, but I would say it's been quite good and extremely reliable. Like I said, don't be scared by all the major repairs I got done. The car is 25 years old. Those things are bound to happen, and once they've been fixed, the car's been good. So with that, we'll come to the end of the video. I hope you found this informative. Let me know in the comments below if you ever had an Avensis. What was your experience like? Did you also find it reliable like mine? Is there any other thing you like to ask about the advances? Leave me a comment below too. Remember to share the video with your loved ones so that they can also benefit from it. And if you are yet to subscribe, don't forget to do that. And remember to hit the bell notification icon so I get notified whenever I upload a new video. So that's the advances for you. To all those that have been asking, well, catch you on the next one. Take care out there, fellas. Stay safe. Bye.